Hey, what's up, guys? We got another bracketology video today. Before we get into it, like and subscribe if you enjoy it. Me and my other partner, who will be in a lot of the videos, we usually make like two. We'll start to make two videos a week about bracketology stuff, some conference tournament stuff as that gets closer, and then we're gonna make a bunch of March Madness related stuff as that gets closer as well. But we also have the top 16 reveal coming up. We'll get a video about that so we can, because we're going to kind of get to see how the committee feels about the top four lines. And that will be really interesting to see every year. That's always interesting because we can actually get a real gauge for, some years the committee values things a little differently. So we can get a real gauge how the committee's valuing certain things. So that's something to look forward to. Love this time of year because every game matters so much. But with all that said, let's jump into it. All right, so let's start with we'll start with the bubble briefly. And I think the first thing I wanted to talk about on the bubble right now is New Mexico because of what happened to them last night. They took a quad four loss at home against Wyoming. That's going to really hurt them because this came out yesterday and that happened after this came out. So New Mexico is almost certainly, not in the tournament after that loss. That's really bad for them, but they have a couple opportunities coming up. North Carolina's still looking for a quad one win. 0-9, I believe it is. They have to get one soon. They got some opportunities coming up, but they need to get one or two quad one wins, you would think, to be able to be in the tournament. But as of now, they're still hanging on without a quad one win. And then Clemson's been struggling lately. They've really fallen off. But they got some opportunities coming up. But I love what I'm seeing out of Mississippi State, though. They've been on a tear recently, winning a lot of good games in the SEC. And then you have still Kentucky outside the bubble. And what Oregon's been doing has been really cool. They find themselves back first team out. So and they got some opportunities, but they can't, there's some slip up games in the Pac-12 that they can't afford. So that's what we have on the bubble right now. Um, every game means so much right now, especially if you're on the bubble. You get a good week, you have a good 2 game, 3 game stretch, you can play yourself right into the tournament or you can play yourself right out. Um, but yeah, so let's get into the bracket itself. Let's start in the South region with the number one seed Alabama, and they're taking on Alcorn State versus Fairleigh Dickinson. Clearly, Alabama would get that one done. Alabama has bounced back tremendously from that game against Oklahoma. They had that rough game, but that was a fluke. They're a great team, so they're obviously going to get by there. Okay, then we got NC State and Florida Atlantic, which this would be a really good game because you have a lot of good guards in this game. NC State has a quartet of really good guards with Terquavion Smith, Jarkel Joyner, Casey Morcell. Really good guards there. And Florida Atlantic plays such an interesting style of basketball with the whole platoon system. So but I think I like NC State to get by this one. They got a lot of talented guards. Uh, Creighton and Liberty. Creighton and Providence had an awesome game last night. Like that was awesome. That was like an instant classic type of game. Double overtime. Devin Carter for Providence played. He was awesome. But Creighton still they took a loss. They hadn't lost in like I don't know, I think they're on an 8 game winning streak or something like that at that point in the Big East. But they took a loss last night. But I still have a lot of faith in this Creighton team. There's a lot of good players in that Creighton team. They got 5 guys. Their whole starting lineup is all capable of putting up 15 any given night, which is always something that is useful. Liberty's a solid squad in themselves, but I'm going to go with Creighton here to get by in a tricky 5-12 matchup. This could probably be a close game. All right, Indiana and VCU though. Indiana's tearing it up lately, absolutely tearing it up. They're playing tremendous basketball. Trace Jackson Davis has been awesome. Hutch Shafino's had some big games in this stretch as well. The freshman point guard. But I think VCU, it's a down year for the A10. And, we'll see if VCU really gets in because it's going to, no matter who in the A10, there's not going to be any at large bids out of the A10. So they're going to need to win the conference tournament. But if VCU does get in, they're a top 30 defensive team and, in KenPom. So if they're able to limit Trace Jackson Davis down low and not let any of the perimeter guys like Hood Shafino get hot, I could definitely see this being a 4-13 upset. And with that said, I kind of like VCU to get by because Indiana can be a little reliant on 1 to 2 guys. They don't spread the wealth as much as some other teams do. So if VCU can limit Trace and also not let anyone on the perimeter get hot, with their defense, I could see them winning. So I like the upset there. 4-13 games, you'll see usually always typically see one of those a year. And so I really like to see that there. And then you got the tricky 6-11 matchup between Iowa, Boise State. And these teams play such different styles of basketball. Iowa likes to get up and down the floor. They like to get the game to 80, 90 points. I think they're sixth in adjusted offensive rating, according to KenPom. And if you watch them play, I mean, you understand why. They want to get up and down and up and down. They always do. It's just how Fran McCaffrey coaches. And but their defense usually struggles because they play at such a fast pace. They do give up a lot of points. Boise State, the exact opposite. They usually like to limit possessions. Um, they like to play slower. They play really good defense, all these types of things. So it's really conflicting styles of basketball here. But I like the defense does travel a lot in March, especially, this first game of the tournament. Teams are going to be coming out with jitters. I think a good defense like Boise State could pull off this mini upset here. So let's go with the mini upset 11/6. Even though Iowa is fun to watch because they get up and down the floor so fast and get so many shots up every game. Marquette and Hofstra. Marquette's had really a special year compared to the expectations. I think they were projected to be like seventh in the Big East or something like that. That's just off memory. I don't know if that's exactly right, but it was like low in the Big East, but they've exceeded expectations. What a job by Shaka Smart. Tyler Kolex, one heck of a point guard. Hofstra is a talented team. They beat College of Charleston a couple weeks ago. But yeah, no, I like Marquette to get by that one, though. I don't think they'd have too many issues. Then we got Northwestern Auburn, and this would be a rematch from a game earlier in the season where it was ugly. I think Auburn won it like 40-36 or something like that. And I think Auburn had a big win last night. They beat Missouri by 33. That really got them back on track. Even though they were playing fine. They were losing close games to tough teams, but they got back in the win column, which is big. So I kind of like Auburn to beat Northwestern, even though this is a really, really special Northwestern team. Okay, we got Baylor and Vermont. Baylor's been playing tremendous recently. They've seemed to figure things out. They're playing way better as a team. Some shot selection has been better. Keontae George has been taking some better shots. I like what I've seen out of Baylor. I like Baylor to get that one. And let's stay in the South region. Let's go up to Bama, NC State. And I really do like this NC State team, but I think this Bama team is a bad matchup for them. Bama has a lot of length, a lot of good defenders. I think NC State would have a tough time matching up against this team because NC State is not very, very big. They're not a very big team at all. But so I don't like this matchup for NC State. I think Bama would get by with relative ease. I don't think it wouldn't be a blowout by any means. Then we got Creighton and VCU. And the way Creighton has been playing this past month and a half has been tremendous. Even with that loss last night, I mean, you can't knock it. Going into Providence is never an easy place to play. I think they're 35-1 in their last 36 games, so at home. So, it's impressive that Creighton even almost beat them. They had some opportunities to win that game, but I still like this Creighton team. This VCU team struggles to score the ball at times, and I don't think they could pull off two upsets in a row, especially with a Creighton team that has several different guys that can score. So let's go Creighton there. And let's go Boise State Marquette. Boise State's having a real nice year. They're having a real nice year this year, but I like Marquette because Marquette has a couple of guys that can really fill it up. They can score. Cam Jones, Prosper. You got Kolek being a point guard who barely turns the ball over and averages 8 assists a game. I don't think they'd be bothered as much by a good defense like Boise State. So I kind of like Marquette to get by there. And then Baylor and Auburn. Auburn's guards, Wendell Smith has shown, like yesterday, he was a lot better. He was less erratic. He went 0 for 4 from the field, but he was better. With that said, though, I think Baylor, it would be too much for Auburn. They make too many mistakes in general. Auburn does. So we got Bama, Creighton, Marquette, Baylor. Bama Creighton it'd be an interesting game because, as long as Kalkbrenner doesn't get into foul trouble, Bama wouldn't be able to, he's such a rim protector. They would have a lot tougher time scoring, inside. But I think Bama could, ooh, man, this is tough actually. I'll get Bama in a squeaky game, but this would be this is a tough matchup. Okay, we got Marquette and Baylor. And we saw this game earlier in the year. Marquette, I think, beat Baylor by 26 off my memory. Um, I don't think it would be a blowout like that again. Baylor's a much better team now than they were then. I think Marquette's even better now than they were then, even with that said. I'm gonna say I just because of that result was so lopsided, and I don't have a strong feeling one way or the other. I'm gonna say Marquette probably gets it done again, even though I think it would be a much, much closer game, would not be a blowout. And then Bama Marquette, I think Bama has a little too much, maybe not necessarily linked, but they have so many athletic players on their team. I think Bama could get by. Brandon Miller's such a stud. And guys like Clowney and Gurley, really good players as well. All right, let's go down to I believe this be the Midwest region. I don't know, not positive. But we got Kansas, Milwaukee. I think Kansas would walk by that pretty easy. Maryland, Pittsburgh. Both these teams had really interesting seasons this year because they didn't really have a ton of expectations coming in, but both these coaches have done a good job. Like Capel and Kevin Willard have really done a good job this season with both these teams. This is a true coin flip game, as most 8-9s are. But I guess since Pittsburgh is, the first in the ACC playing great basketball recently, I think they've won 7 in a row. I'll go with Pittsburgh here. UConn, Kent State. I said in a video before, I really like this Kent State team. When you watch them play, they're really good. They can defend well, but they have, I don't know, I like them a lot. So I'm gonna go with the 12-5. UConn has not been incredibly impressive the last month or two, or not month or two, but last like 3 weeks or so. They're bouncing back a little bit recently, but I like Kent State in this 12-5. Gonzaga, Yale. Gonzaga, this is not your dominant Gonzaga team we've seen the last, 3-4 seasons, but they're still a good team. And I think they should be able to get by Yale. It feels like at some point Gonzaga might be able to figure things out, but each game I watch Gonzaga, they're just never super impressive. But I think they'd be able to get by Yale here. So let's go Gonzaga. TCU, Memphis. And we haven't seen Mike Miles yet, and I haven't looked up exactly when they think he's coming back. Maybe it might be this week. I know it's supposed to be somewhat soon, because they've been losing like every game without him. He means so much to their team. So as long as Mike Miles is able to come back healthy, I think TCU should be able to get by Memphis. But this is a sneaky Memphis team though. So I don't know. It's like we haven't seen Mike Miles in a while, but let's say with Mike Miles, TCU should be able to beat Memphis because TCU with a healthy Mike Miles is honestly better than a 6 seed. But we'll have TCU sneaking by as long as Mike Miles is back and he's 100%. Virginia, Colgate. This is another one of these things with really conflicting styles or play styles because we all know how Virginia plays. They play slow. They like to limit the possessions of the game. They play that good pack line defense. Colgate plays super fast. They get up and down. They get up a ton of shots. They shoot a lot of threes. And I think we need an upset here. I think we need an upset. I like this Virginia team, and I love Tony Bennett, but I think this is a good opportunity. As long, if Colgate's able to, hit some shots, hit some outs, maybe hit, 35 to 40% of their threes, somewhere in that range, they'd be able to pull off an upset. So I like it there. We got a little 14/3. Then we got Missouri and West Virginia. And this would be a really good game, interesting game. Missouri played really bad against Auburn, but I think it's just a slip-up game. They still don't have any losses outside of the quadrant one, which is really impressive. They're only one of a few teams that have done that this year. Yeah, and I'm gonna go Missouri in an absolute battle with that this would be. West Virginia's been playing. They lost their last 2, but then before that, I think they'd won 2 or 3 in a row. It's a gauntlet in the Big 12, but I'm gonna go Missouri in a close one. Kobe Brown would probably be the guy who steps up and gets 20 for Missouri in a game like that because he usually steps up in the big games. He's had really good games against some of the better teams this year, like Illinois. He had a big game. Kentucky, he had a big game. So yeah, I like Missouri to get by that one. And then Arizona and Ryder. I think Arizona gets by. But then I want to stay down here with Arizona, Missouri, because we've seen Arizona has had an ability in some to slip to some teams that aren't very good. They just lost to Stanford. They've lost to Utah, which Utah is a bit better than Stanford, but they've lost to somebody else that's like nowhere even near the tournament field. So I like to see the 7-2 upset here with Missouri beating Arizona because Arizona has scared me at times. They're still really talented, but Arizona scares me at times. So I like Missouri here. TCU and Colgate. I think the Cinderella run ends right here for Colgate. We got TCU going on. Kent State and Gonzaga. We saw this game earlier. Kent State was up by 5 with only 3 minutes to go or something like that. And I think we got I'm gonna have I want Kent State Cinderella run here, beat Gonzaga because we saw how tough they played them earlier in the year on the road. And so I think Kent State on a neutral site can beat Gonzaga. So let's go Kent State. Kansas, Pittsburgh. As good as Pittsburgh's been this year, I think Kansas, too many weapons, could get by Pittsburgh, but I think it would actually be fairly close. But I like Kansas there. And I'm gonna have the Cinderella run in for Kent State. I'm not gonna get too out of control with Kent State to the Elite Eight, but so we're gonna have Kansas winning there. And then TCU and Missouri. Really actually an interesting game, but when TCU is fully healthy, TCU is a top 3 team in the Big 12, top 10 to 15 team in the country. So I'm gonna go TCU here to get by Missouri. That sets up a Big 12 battle here between Kansas and TCU. And I think I honestly, because of how hard it is to repeat to get back to the Final Four in back-to-back years, if I'm just going to base it off that. But man, I'm skeptical to have TCU go right now to the Final Four because they've been struggling so much, and we don't know what Mike Miles is going to be when he gets back. So I'm 50-50. Okay, we're gonna actually I just thought about it. We're gonna have Kansas win here because we need to see Mike Miles back healthy before we can have TCU in the Final Four. All right, let's go up here to Purdue versus Morehead State and Howard. We all know how good Purdue is. We're gonna have Purdue go by there. Then we got Oak State versus Arkansas, and both these teams been playing really good recently. Oak State had a loss against Kansas last night, but still playing tremendous. Arkansas, they're having that typical Arkansas resurgence in February where they get really hot and they start to play really good heading into the tournament. They got Nick Smith back now too, so things are looking really good for Arkansas. And I think it would be a battle here because Oak State defends really well, but I like Arkansas to get by here. They're starting to hit their stride at the right time in typical Eric Musselman fashion. It seems like every year that's what Arkansas does. So let's go down to Miami versus Southern Miss, this is a really good 5-12 matchup. Southern Miss has honestly quietly had a really good season in the Conference USA this year. But I like Miami here just because they have a couple guys back from that Elite Eight team last year. And then they bring in Nigel Pack as well from K-State. So I really do like this Miami team still. Super talented team. They've just been looking really solid this year. So I like Miami to get by Southern Miss and probably a close game. Xavier still without Fremantle, probably going to get Fremantle back at least, hopefully before the tournament. But even without Fremantle, I don't think Utah Valley pulls the upset off there. And then we got Rutgers versus New Mexico and Clemson. New Mexico likely not even in the tournament. If it started today with that bad quad 4 loss last night, and Clemson's not playing very well at all right now. So I like Rutgers to get by either of those teams. And we got Tennessee and Furman. Tennessee's had some a little bit of struggles recently. Had a couple heartbreakers in a row, two buzzer beaters in a row. I feel sorry for you if you're a Tennessee fan. But I think Tennessee's getting by Furman in that one. And then we got San Diego State versus A&M. And San Diego State's having a really solid year. They're staying with the expectations. They've had a really solid season, but I really like what I've seen out of A&M recently. After having such a terrible non-conference, they've had a great SEC schedule. They've done great in the SEC so far. So I like A&M in a good battle against San Diego State. It'd probably be a low scoring game because typically San Diego State's games are low scoring, even though this San Diego State team can score a lot more than typical teams. But I still like A&M to get by. Then we got Texas, UNC, Asheville. I don't think we're going to see a 15/2 there. So we're going to have Texas. And then we got another huge upset, I believe, with Purdue and Arkansas. Purdue hasn't been looking as unbeatable these past couple weeks. They've had a couple, been some close losses. They just lost to Northwestern on Sunday. That was crazy. Purdue's guards been really solid all year, but they were not great in that Northwestern game, especially down the stretch. They were not great. And Arkansas has such good success in the tournament. So I like Arkansas. I'll say this, it's going to be a struggle for them to stop Zach Edey. It'd be a huge struggle, but if they can limit Edey, I think Arkansas's guards match up very well against Purdue's guards. And so if they can I think Musselman can devise a game plan to limit Edey, hopefully to maybe like a 20-point, 10 rebound game. And then if that happens, and that's still a really good game, but if they hold them like 20 and 10, I think Arkansas can pull off the huge upset. Got the 9/1 upset there. Then we got Miami and Xavier. And I look at these teams so incredibly similarly. And I could see Xavier still doing a Final Four run, but since I had Xavier winning it all in the last one, I don't want to go too crazy with Xavier again because I look at Miami and Xavier as such close teams in terms of skill level and what I think they can do. So I'm going to go Miami this time. Yeah, because they're too close. These teams they're really similar skill level. Rutgers, Tennessee. That would be a dogfight of a game. Both these teams play good defenses. You see both of them play some really low scoring games sometimes. I like Tennessee mostly just because they got a little more depth. If Rutgers gets into foul trouble, they have a lot less depth. And the Rutgers usually runs like a 7-man rotation where Tennessee can go 8 or 9. Sometimes a little even 10. So let's go Tennessee because the depth, especially in a dog fight of a game, fouls could be an issue. And then Texas A&M and Texas and Texas is a super up and down. I sometimes watch them play and I'm like, wow, this team's really good. Or sometimes I watch them play, I'm like, man, this team's not very good, especially for a 2 seed. I feel like they can look really good and really bad sometimes. But I think, you get Texas on a pretty typical day. I think Texas can get by A&M in that one. Okay, so that sets up an Arkansas-Miami matchup. And this one's tough. I'm gonna go with, man, both these teams were in the Elite Eight last year. Two talented squads. I'm gonna go Miami though, just because they've proven it more this season than Arkansas has. Arkansas's playing better now, but Miami's proven it throughout the year. So we're gonna go with the more stable team and to get by and get to the Elite Eight. So we got Miami there. Then we got Texas, Tennessee. We've seen this matchup before. Tennessee won at home. This one will be on a neutral site, though, obviously. And we're going to flip it. We're going to say Texas can get by. And we're going to have Texas against Miami. I could obviously see that Texas-Tennessee game going either way. But we're going to have Texas get by and find their way to the Elite Eight with the crazy, in-season firing of their coach with, that whole scandal. So we got Texas and Miami. And this would be a really, really good game. But I think Texas, this is a deep Texas team too. Like they got Sir'Jabari Rice coming off the bench. He's terrific. They're just a really deep team. I like Texas here. Their depth would be incredible in this type of game. So let's go Texas over Miami. And then Houston is obviously going to beat Texas A&M Corpus Christi. Providence Duke, really interesting 8-9 game. Um, I've showed Duke no love so far in any of the brackets, so I'm gonna have Duke beat Providence, but Providence is such a gritty team, so well coached. It's tough to pick against them, but this Duke team at times can be really good. They can be really talented team, and at times it's kind of like Texas, where times I'm like, man, this team it's a little different. It's a 9 seed, not a 2 seed, but Duke can look underwhelming at times. But let's go with Duke here to beat Providence. Illinois, Oral Roberts. Illinois took a loss yesterday, but Jalen Pickett for Penn State just went crazy. They were hot all night. Honestly, nothing Illinois could practically do to stop Penn State yesterday, but Illinois still looking at a 5 seed, playing Oral Roberts, who Oral Roberts has no losses outside the quadrant one this year either. Um, Pardon me. This one's tough. This is a tricky 12-5, but we're gonna say Illinois gets by. We're gonna have Illinois get by there. Iowa State and Drake, and I really like this Drake team. Drake has hung tough or beat some tough teams this year. They hung tough with Mississippi State earlier. No, they beat Mississippi State earlier this year. They've hung tough with some other teams, so I like Drake. Drake plays good defense. I like Drake to pull off a little ups. That's an Iowa upset right there. That would be an interesting game for the state of Iowa because you got Drake and Iowa State. So I think Drake could get by in a crazy one. St. Mary's versus Mississippi State, North Carolina. That's a good play-in game. UNC, I'm still waiting on them to get hot. It just feels like I think we all probably feel that way. It just feels like they haven't been overly impressive, but it feels like at some point they're gonna find a way to, string 2, 3 good wins together. But I don't know. It might not happen. Might just not happen this year. I'm gonna say UNC finds a way to figure it out, and we're gonna have UNC. Oh crap. I don't know what I just did. Okay. But we're gonna have UNC beat Mississippi State, and we always see that in that play-in game, like one of those 11 seeds, they always seem to find a way to at least win one or two. And so we're gonna say UNC is the team that does it again this year. Then we got Kansas State versus UC Santa Barbara. And man, I'm gonna have Kansas State win, but that would be a 14-3 to look for an upset. And that would probably be a pretty commonly picked 14/3 upset, but we're gonna go Kansas State, but I easily could have went with the 14/3 there. Okay, then we got Michigan State, Nevada. Michigan State still a solid squad. We haven't seen them in a little bit because they had that school shooting and all that. So, but they've been playing solid lately. They got a 7 seed. I like Michigan State to beat Nevada. And then I like UCLA over Eastern Washington. But if UCLA has one of those horrendous shooting nights, I mean, it wouldn't absolutely shock me for UCLA to lose to Eastern Washington. But we got UCLA beating them. And then we're going to have UCLA beating Michigan State because Michigan State at times can struggle to score the ball. And then Kansas State, UNC. I just don't see this UNC team making a run this year. I said they might get hot, and then I got them winning maybe 2 actually, because they win their play and then they beat St. Mary's. But I don't think this UNC team is gonna do what they did last year. So we're gonna have K-State get by. And then Illinois and Drake. No Cinderella story too much for Drake here. We're gonna have Illinois. I think Illinois just a little too athletic for Drake. And then Houston over Duke. I think Houston gets by. And as an Illinois fan, I hate to see this Houston-Illinois matchup. Houston honestly beat us pretty easily last year in the tournament. I think they'd probably beat us again in the tournament. I think maybe we're slightly better than last year's team, even though we're a 5 seed instead of a 4, but I like Houston to beat us. Houston's just they're tough. K-State, UCLA. I like UCLA. I like UCLA because K-State a little too reliant on just Keontae Johnson and Noel, and I am always skeptical of teams that I feel like don't have. I usually like to see teams that have 3 good options to score the ball instead of just 2. I don't know. There's just that comfort I feel like with 3 good options. Now K-State does have a good point guard, which is always important in March, but Tiger Campbell for UCLA is a tremendous point guard as well. So I like UCLA to get by there. And then I like UCLA Houston. This would be a good matchup. I'm gonna go Houston though. I'm not been incredibly impressed with UCLA lately, but I still think UCLA is a good team. But we're gonna go Houston to set up a Texas matchup. And I'm gonna Kansas, Bama, Texas, Houston in the final four. A lot of high seeds in this one. We got a one, a two, and a one. So a little higher than I normally like it because I like to see a little more upsets, but it is what it is. You see some years like that. There's years where it's 3-1 and a two. So let's go. Let's start with Texas, Houston, and the Texas matchup. I've been generally more impressed with Houston throughout the season. And they're so tenacious on the offensive glass. So I'm gonna go Houston to beat Texas and an absolute thriller. And then Bama, Kansas. It's so rare to see a repeat champion in college basketball. It hasn't happened since Florida in 06-07. So I'm going to have Bama get by because Bama has really rebounded well recently. Even though this Kansas team is also, they could definitely repeat. I could see it happening. This could be the year we see a repeat, but today's bracketology and with the way Bama's bounced back and look, we're going to go Bama. Which this sets up a rematch of a game at Houston where Bama beats Houston. But I'm gonna go with Houston today because throughout the year, especially early on, I was a huge Houston like believer, and then I was like I don't know. Now I'm kind of getting back. I'm feeling more and more confident in Houston again, so I like Houston to win and wow, and will be a great game because it was a great game earlier in the year. Bama beat Houston at Houston, which was a great game, but that's Houston's only quadrant one loss actually this year. So let's go 77. No, yeah, 74, 67. Houston as the champs, but yeah, that's what I like. That's what I like this year, or not this year, this bracketology. We have a ton of good games this week, some big games tonight, like Xavier Marquette plays tonight, and so this is gonna be really interesting. We have the top 16 reveal. We'll have a video about that soon. Some more bracketologies, things like that. So, like I said, like and subscribe if you did it, and if you did enjoy it. Also, comment just like who you like, you know, who's making you have the most belief or however you felt about what I said. You can just leave some comments. Appreciate the support, and we'll see you guys in the next one.